15 degrees in Aberdeen, whilst London shivers at just 8. Yes, you heard that correctly. Scotland warmer than the capital, and this temperature inversion is just the beginning of what could become the most complex weather week Britain has seen this autumn. Is your area about to face a dramatic shift that'll catch most people completely unprepared? Right now, the Met Office has amber warnings covering 7 counties across southern England, affecting over 12 million people. Roads are already treacherous from overnight frost, and temperatures haven't climbed above freezing in parts of Kent since yesterday evening. But here's what you need to know in the next 60 seconds, and I need you to drop your location in the comments right now, because tomorrow I'll be giving personalised forecasts for every single area you mention. London, you are looking at 8 degrees today, dropping to 3 tonight. Weekend potentially reaching 11, but with significant rain. Manchester, currently 12 degrees, falling to 5 by tonight. Saturday brings 9 degrees with intermittent showers. Birmingham sits at 10 degrees right now. Tonight down to 4, weekend hovering around 8 with persistent cloud. Glasgow, surprisingly mild at 14 degrees. Tonight only dropping to 9, weekend staying around 12 degrees. Cardiff, you are at 11 degrees currently. Tonight 6 degrees. Saturday climbing back to 13 before the next system arrives. Belfast, 12 degrees today, tonight 7 degrees. Weekend temperatures around 10 with blustery conditions developing. Now, there is something developing over the Atlantic that the models are struggling to agree on, and this disagreement matters enormously for your weekend plans. The Met Office Unified model is showing a deep low pressure system tracking northeast towards Scotland, bringing the heaviest precipitation to northern England and southern Scotland. But wait until you see what the European model suggests. It is showing that same system taking a more southerly track, which would shift the heaviest rain into the Midlands and potentially as far south as London. That 50-mile difference in the low S trajectory changes everything. Let me walk you through what we're seeing across the country right now, and I'll explain why this matters for the next 5 days. Starting with the southeast, Dover currently sits at 7 degrees with clear skies, but that clarity is deceptive. Brighton, 8 degrees with fog patches lingering near the coast. Oxford, 9 degrees and that S, about as warm as you'll get today. Cambridge, similar story at 9 degrees, but the easterly breeze makes it feel considerably colder. Southampton, fractionally warmer at 10 degrees, though coastal areas are seeing that persistent ha rolling in from the channel. Now here S what nobody S talking about. Whilst everyone S focused on this weekend S rain, there is a secondary concern developing for early next week. The jet stream is beginning to buckle, and depending on where that buckle sets up, we could see either a prolonged mild spell or, and this is where it gets interesting, a significant cold snap pulling Arctic air straight down from Scandinavia. I'll have much clearer details on this by tomorrow morning S forecast, so do make sure you check back. Moving into the Midlands, Leicester currently 10 degrees, Nottingham sitting at 11, Coventry at 9 degrees, with overcast conditions throughout. The Midlands are in this transition zone, and that is precisely why model uncertainty matters so much for your area. Sheffield 11 degrees now, Leeds matching that at 11, Bradford at 10 degrees. These temperatures seem reasonable enough, but combine them with the wind chill we are expecting tonight, and it all feel closer to 3 or 4 degrees across Yorkshire. Here's the situation with those model runs I mentioned earlier. The Met Office model, updated at 6 o'clock this morning, shows the low pressure centre passing just west of the Isle of Man around midday Saturday. That track would bring the heaviest rain to Liverpool, Manchester, and across the Pennines into Leeds. Rainfall totals in that scenario could reach 60 to 80 millimetres across the high ground. However, the European Model S latest run, which came in about 2 hours later, shifts that low pressure centre roughly 40 miles further south. In that scenario, Birmingham takes the brunt of it, with Wolverhampton, Stoke, Derby all seeing 50 to 70 millimetres. Manchester still gets rain, but perhaps only 20 to 30 millimetres. Tomorrow morning's model runs should clarify this, and that is exactly why I need you watching tomorrow S forecast. This isn't one of those situations where I'm just asking for engagement. The meteorology genuinely requires another 12 to 18 hours of model guidance before we can pin down which communities need to prepare for potential flooding versus which areas might escape with just scattered showers. Let me move up to the northwest. Liverpool currently sitting at 13 degrees, Blackpool at 12 degrees, with blustery winds already picking up off the Irish Sea. Lancaster at 11 degrees, Carlisle cooler at 9 degrees as we start getting into the higher terrain. Preston, 12 degrees, And that lake effect off the Irish Sea is already generating some sporadic showers across coastal Lancashire. These showers are light now, but they a preview of what develops Friday night into Saturday. Newcastle currently 11 degrees, Sunderland at 10 degrees, both seeing grey skies but staying dry for now. Durham at 10 degrees, Middlesbrough at 11 degrees. The northeast is in an interesting position because you are on the eastern side of this developing system. Whilst the west gets the heavy rain, the northeast might actually see some breaks in the clouds Saturday afternoon. But, and there's always a but with these setups, if that low tracks even 30 miles further north than currently forecast, suddenly Newcastle is looking at persistent rain rather than those brighter spells. Across into Scotland, and remember that temperature inversion I mentioned at the start, Edinburgh, currently 13 degrees, considerably milder than London. Glasgow at 14 degrees, Aberdeen at 15 degrees, which is genuinely remarkable for late November. Inverness sits at 12 degrees, Dundee at 13 degrees. This mildness is courtesy of a southwesterly flow ahead of that approaching low pressure system, pulling relatively warm air up from the subtropics. It won T last. By Sunday, these temperatures drop back to more typical values, single digits across the board. Now, there's one detail that concerns me most about this weekend S setup, and I haven't seen many forecasts highlighting this yet. The rainfall itself is significant, yes, but it is the rainfall rate that poses the real flood risk. We're not looking at gentle, steady rain that drainage systems can handle. The Met Office rainfall radar shows this will come in waves, intense pulses, where we could see 15 to 20 millimeters falling in just 1 hour. Ground conditions are already saturated from last week's rain. River levels in the Severn, the Trent, the Ouse, they were all running high. Add this intense rainfall on top, and we are looking at a genuine flood risk for low-lying areas and anywhere near rivers. Wales deserves specific attention here. Swansea currently at 12 degrees, Bangor at 11 degrees, both staying relatively mild through Friday. But Saturday, particularly Saturday afternoon and evening, the rainfall across the Brecon, Beacons and Snowdonia could be exceptional. We are potentially looking at 100 millimeters or more across the highest peaks. That water has to go somewhere, and it flows down into the valleys. Communities in the South Wales valleys need to be particularly vigilant Saturday evening into Sunday morning. Wrexham, Aberystwyth, Carmarthen all need to monitor river levels closely. Moving to Northern Ireland, Belfast currently 12 degrees, as I mentioned earlier, Derry at 11 degrees, Armagh at 10 degrees. Northern Ireland gets the first bite of this system Friday evening. Rain arrives from the west around 6 or 7 o'clock Friday evening, turning heavy overnight, then gradually clearing through Saturday morning. Rainfall totals looking like 30 to 50 millimeters, significant but not as extreme as what S heading for Northern England and Wales. Let me give you the timing more precisely for the major urban centres, because this matters if you've got weekend plans. London, rain arrives late Saturday evening, around 10 or 11 o'clock, continues through Sunday morning, clearing by early afternoon. Total rainfall, probably 20 to 30 millimeters. Manchester, rain begins Friday evening around 7 o'clock, heaviest overnight Friday into Saturday, intermittent through Saturday daytime, finally clearing Saturday evening. Totals potentially 50 to 70 millimeters, higher on the Pennines. Birmingham, this depends entirely on that low S track, but most likely scenario has rain arriving Saturday morning around 8 or 9 o'clock, heavy through midday, easing Saturday evening, 40 to 60 millimeters possible. Glasgow, rain arrives Friday afternoon around 4 o'clock, heavy Friday evening and overnight. Showers continuing Saturday but turning lighter, clearing Saturday afternoon, 30 to 50 millimeters likely. Cardiff, rain begins late Friday evening, heaviest Saturday morning, continues intermittently through Saturday afternoon, clearing Saturday night. 50 to 70 millimeters possible, higher in the valleys as I mentioned. Edinburgh, similar timing to Glasgow, Friday afternoon arrival, heavy overnight, clearing Saturday afternoon, 30 to 40 millimeters expected. Here S where the forecast gets uncertain. Sunday into next week, there are two scenarios. Scenario 1, high pressure builds from the Atlantic, settles things down, brings pleasant if cool weather. Temperatures 8 to 11 degrees, dry with possible sunshine. Scenario 2, low pressure remains dominant, staying in this Atlantic conveyor belt of wind and rain, temperatures mild but conditions unsettled. There is also a Scenario 3 showing on some ensemble members. If high pressure builds from Scandinavia instead, we could see easterly winds pulling colder air from the continent. Daytime temperatures struggling to reach 5 or 6 degrees, nights down to -2 or -3, any precipitation potentially falling as snow even at low levels. Currently only about 15% of models show this, but at S worth monitoring. Exeter currently at 11 degrees, Plymouth at 10 degrees, Cornwall and Devon seeing rain arrive Saturday morning. 20 to 30 millimeters over 24 hours. York at 10 degrees, Scarborough 9 degrees, with that North Sea wind making it feel chilly. Lincoln at 10 degrees, Norwich at 9 degrees, Ipswich at 8 degrees. East Anglia stays largely dry through the weekend on the periphery of this system. Bristol sits at 11 degrees, Bath at 10 degrees, Gloucester at 9 degrees. The Severn Estuary could see rough conditions Saturday with spring tides coinciding with heavy rain. Taunton at 10 degrees, Yeovil at 9 degrees, both looking at sustained rainfall Saturday. Wind gusts Friday night into Saturday morning could reach 80 to 90 kilometers per hour across exposed western coasts, strong enough to bring down tree branches, particularly with saturated ground. Inland areas looking at 60 to 70 kilometers per hour gusts, affecting high-sided vehicles on motorways. Channel Islands looking at rough seas Friday and Saturday, temperatures staying mild around 13 degrees. Isle of Wight similarly seeing rough conditions in the Solent. Western Isles and Hebrides on the northern flank, Stornoway at 13 degrees, seeing rain and wind Friday. Orkney at 11 degrees, Shetland at 10 degrees, both on the periphery. Winds strong at 50 to 60 kilometers per hour sustained. Now regarding those Met Office warnings. The amber warnings currently cover Kent, East Sussex, West Sussex, Surrey, Hampshire, Berkshire, and Oxfordshire for ice and frost through Friday morning. These will likely be updated Friday afternoon to include rainfall warnings for the weekend. Yellow warnings for rain will probably extend across Wales, northwest England, and southern Scotland. If we do get high pressure building next week, nights could turn quite cold. Widespread frost, temperatures down to -3 or -4 in sheltered valleys, colder in Scottish glens. But days could be pleasant, crisp sunshine, temperatures climbing to 9 or 10 degrees. One thing to clarify, flooding isn't inevitable. The flood risk depends on rainfall intensity and location. The Environment Agency has issued flood alerts for several rivers, but alerts mean flooding is possible, not definite. If you're in a flood risk area, check the Environment Agency website, but don't panic. Most areas will see heavy rain causing surface water issues, nothing more severe. For weekend travel, Friday evening into Saturday is the period to avoid. Road conditions worse than with spray, standing water, reduced visibility, and strong crosswinds. Saturday afternoon likely better than morning for most routes. Sunday improving as rain clears eastward. Early December currently looking unsettled but mild, temperatures 8 to 12 degrees, further rain at times. Mid-December too far out for meaningful detail. Actually, looking at the very latest model run that S just come in, the European model has shifted slightly north, bringing it more into agreement with the Met Office model. That S encouraging because it suggests we re-honing in on the most likely solution. Northern England and southern Scotland remain the focus for heaviest rain. See how quickly these things change? That's why tomorrow's forecast will have updated information. Here is what I am watching most closely over the next 24 hours. First, where exactly do those 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock model runs place that low-pressure center Saturday lunchtime? Second, what do the rainfall rate predictions show for the peak intensity period? Third, do any models start showing that scenario 3 I mentioned, the cold easterly setup gaining traction? And fourth, what do river level forecasts indicate for flood risk Saturday night into Sunday? Before I wrap up, I want to acknowledge something. Weather forecasting isn't perfect, especially at 3 to 5 days. I am giving you the most likely scenarios based on current model guidance, but there is inherent uncertainty in any forecast beyond 48 hours. That is not a failure of meteorology, it is just the nature of trying to predict a chaotic system. What I can promise is that I'll update you every single day as the models refine, as confidence increases, and as we get into the period where we can give you very specific high confidence forecasts. Tomorrow's video will have several things today S doesn't T. First, updated model guidance with hopefully much better agreement on that low S track. Second, specific flood risk assessments for individual river catchments. Third, more detailed wind forecasts including specific gust values for different regions. Fourth, and this is where your comments come in, personalised forecasts for the specific locations you've mentioned. I genuinely do read through the comments and try to address as many areas as possible. So here is what you need to do today. First, if you are in a flood risk area, check you know where to find updates from the Environment Agency or Scottish Environment Protection Agency. Second, if you've got weekend travel plans, have a backup option in case conditions deteriorate. Third, secure anything in your garden that strong winds might move. And fourth, drop your location in the comments so I can include your area specifically in tomorrow's forecast. The next video will be tomorrow morning around 9 o'clock, which gives me time to review the overnight model runs and provide you with the most up-to-date information possible. Friday evening, I'll do an emergency update if conditions are looking particularly severe, but that'll depend on how tomorrow's guidance develops. Thank you for watching, and I mean that genuinely. Creating these detailed forecasts takes considerable time, and knowing that you find them useful makes that effort worthwhile. I'll see you tomorrow morning with much clearer information about this weekend's weather. Take care, stay safe, and please do share this with anyone who might find it useful. The more people who have accurate information, the better